the thing that's special about TikTok that no other social media platform has, and one of the reasons I was drawn to it so quickly, is discoverability. Every other platform is about sharing your content. You will not get viewership on Twitch just because you are playing on Twitch.
Twitch has zero discoverability.
Where TikTok is 100% discoverability. If you are creating art of any variety anywhere and you want to build an audience to it, you can get your audience from TikTok to other platforms. It takes effort but that's the goal of TikTok, right? It is an advertising platform. The people that are making a living by being extremely TikTok famous are doing it through brand deals outside of the TikTok fund, right? The money you make on TikTok is nothing. That's one of the largest actual criticisms of TikTok. A lot of people are making a lot of content for them and they don't pay very well, versus YouTube that pays a lot better. But the reverse of that is they are paying in literal exposure.
Yes.
And there's value to that.
Welcome to Humans of Magic. My guest this week is Alex Kessler, aka KessWylie. Alex is the CEO and founder of Kess.co, a kick-ass toy company. He's also a magic creator and the longtime host of the Cast. Alex and I sit down for a conversation. We talk about content, the secrets of TikTok, why One Piece is the modern-day Odyssey, and even the new Lord of the Rings set. Enjoy.
I use Riverside, and I heard there's actually a time limit when it comes to Zencastr. Like, you can't do more than 2 hours. I'm not sure if that's true or not.
I pay for it. So if you pay for it, that limit doesn't affect you.
Oh, well, then problem solved, because I pay for this thing, so it's really equivalent.
Yeah. I think it also, like, because I don't edit our podcast anymore, I don't have the time to breathe. So like, it's nice because our editors can just like log in and download the files from their end, and having a paid version lets you do that. You get higher quality. There's a bunch of like slice of life stuff that makes it a lot easier. But if you pay, the free version has like the free zoom thing where it like cuts you out if you after a certain time limit, which I use because Shivam had me on his podcast and he uses it as well. And he like was complaining about the stuff between free and not free. And I was like, how much does it cost? And it's like, normal subscription free price. I was like, I'll just pay for it. I'm paying for other stuff for this podcast that's more expensive unnecessarily.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like as I get older, I'm just paying more for software and just paying more for stuff. Whereas like when I was young, I was like, yeah, I got to bootleg. I gotta maximize value or like get it off Napster. And now it's just like, I just want like pay to get quality,
I've started, and it's a bad habit likely, to like, what is my hourly rate in life? And is the effort to get this thing for free take more time than my hourly rate that I've decided I have in life? And most of the time, it's not worth more than if I was getting paid. So I'm just like, I'll just pay $15 a month for, or I'll buy this, or I'll do this like easier thing, or pay for valet at a parking structure because it's like $5 extra for parking. But now I'm not spending like 10 to 20 minutes trying to find a spot and having to forget where my car is and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Life is short. Short. Actually, you just reminded me when I was, because I know I visited you in LA, and then actually, it's funny because a month later, my wife and I actually went back to California, but we didn't like stay around LA the second time. We didn't stay in LA. We stayed in Orange County, which is a lot nicer, obviously. And I think we went to.
Those are fighting words, but continue.
Those are fighting words. All right, I know you're an LA. You're an LA native, so yeah, I shouldn't start a fight at the very beginning of the podcast. But I think we went to. We just Googled for a restaurant, and we didn't know it was like a Universal Studios, so we ended up like going in there. But it was pretty nice because like at first we were like, oh man, do we have to pay $30 for the valet parking? And then they're like, oh, if you eat at the restaurant, then you just get like $25 off, or you can just like rebate it. So essentially, it was so funny. We didn't actually end up going to Universal Studios, but we went in there just to eat. But it was actually fine.
You drove all the way from Orange County to Universal Studios for dinner?
We were in LA for like some appointment, and then for lunch, and then in the morning, and we're like, oh yeah, we gotta eat somewhere. So it just kind of lined up. So it wasn't one of those things like we're not gonna go. It was the Chinese restaurant in Universal. It wasn't like, it's not a destination restaurant. We ended up going to like an amazing Korean barbecue in K-Town that night. And that was
generally a sentence that's true.
Yes.
Being in K-Town and getting amazing Korean barbecue is the move.
Yes, and I actually asked Josh Lee Kwai, like, okay, is this restaurant decent? Because I think he's a foodie, or maybe him
Yes.
and Jimmy. And then they're like, yeah, this is legit. You got to do it, and that's what we did. So
They are generally the people I go to when I'm like, I want Korean barbecue, but I'm in San Gabriel. Where should I go? And they're like, go to this place. This is the best. And they're generally right.
a living, breathing, I don't know, Yelp, or I think that that's
if
that's
you
what
want,
it is.
if you're in LA and you want good Korean barbecue recommendations, Jimmy and Josh are go-tos. If you want good ramen recommendations and or noodle soup recommendations, I'm the one to go to.
I still have very fond memories of the place he took me. Like I that was a very good spot. That was a very very nice spot. So like, are you just like the ramen connoisseur? Is
Yeah,
that what
I don't
it
know
is?
how it. Well, I know how it happened. I just keep eating it. But,
You just assume the menu. Yeah.
It just ends up being. There was a weird. It was like when the pandemic kind of not ended because we're still in it, but when like travel started slowing up and a lot of the like LA based YouTube gameplay shows, game nights, Tabletop Jocks, a few of the others were all like getting people in at the same time. Where I ate at the restaurant I took you like 6 times in 2 weeks because Rebel was visiting, Nathan was visiting, Jim was visiting, Olivia was visiting. Like it was just like people kept visiting, and I was like, I literally like I felt like I gained 10 pounds because I kept eating at like different ramen restaurants around Los Angeles. But yeah, it's my our offices in like where me and my wife first lived when we first moved in together is in an area called Sawtelle Japantown, and it's like a little small version of Little Tokyo on the west side of LA that the reason it exists in an interesting story, we don't have to get into that, but basically there's like a run of like 4 of the best ramen restaurants arguably in the country, which like that's one of the, like the whole foodie thing for me is like I travel so much for work that I've been able to eat at some really great restaurants around the world, and and my wife jokes it because we'll get like ramen in a random city and be like, ooh, this isn't great. Weirdly enough, I got it in Nuremberg, Germany recently, and it was great. I had like one of the best meal we had there was like a ramen place called Ramen.
Oh, really? Did you look it up, or was it just like you just found...
my secret for finding good restaurants while traveling outside of recommendations is I use TikTok to find good restaurant recommendations. Like I refuse to use Yelp. I refuse to use TripAdvisor. Google, all of that is so SEO driven that these restaurants have like figured out, and these major corporations have figured out that the restaurants you end up are super big tourist traps and always kind of suck.
Yeah, half the reviews are fake.
Yeah, exactly. If you go to TikTok, you find like that random video of like some random local who's like, these are my 5 favorite restaurants in Nuremberg, Germany, and they like go through it, and you're like, okay, this is just a regular person, but these restaurants look good, and they have like videos of the food, and it's all real, and you're like, okay, I'd rather do that. And that eventually will also be gamed, right? But at least the TikTok algorithm is really punishing to fake content generally, or like corporations trying to figure it out. It's why like the most common corporate account successful TikTok is like a intern being like, or a social media director being like, if I don't film this video, my boss will fire me. Please like it. Which is always fascinating.
That's actually a good topic to start with. It's like TikTok. I mean, you're just someone whom I admire a lot for like just completely like being native to TikTok, right? Like I just feel like you are doing something that other Magic creators may not necessarily be able to do, which is like you just know the game. You just know how TikTok works. Like is that just like something innate to you, or?
So me, Joe, and Zbex, or Black Nito and Zbex were kind of like the first 3 Magic content creators on TikTok, and then a bunch of other people grew off of that. Right? It was like kind of a really interesting window. I was on TikTok earlier, just partially due to ADHD, enjoying just like swiping through video feeds, and I was like finding myself doing it because Facebook or Instagram would automatically do it if you get in a video loop. And then like my wife was using it as Musically before it became TikTok as like a game, so she forced me to download it at some point to like do something. She stopped using it, but then I like opened it and started just like cycling through it, and like realized that you could get very high quantity of views with significantly different levels of effort, especially early on, than like what I was
less
doing.
effort, right?
Yeah, less effort. Yeah, than what I was doing on YouTube or what I was doing on Twitch or whatever. And And so I just started posting more for work. So for my toy company, I was like posting, we had a Squishies collectible line because, you know, it's like, oh, kids are on this app. This is appealing to them. I had a few videos hit like the 250,000 mark without too much effort. And then, just realized I started making Magic content too. At first I was like trying to not do Magic content because like, okay, this can be an outlet outside of that. And then, but like couldn't help myself because, you know, what I talk about is that.
Well, TikTok also doesn't really punish you for like being a variety person, right?
So
you just like throw things.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Right. Like you have to. It depends what you're trying to do, right? If you're fishing for hits, it doesn't matter. But once you start building a following, it does start mattering. So early on, if you were to start a TikTok account right now, what I'd recommend is just variety content. Make 5 videos a day about whatever you're in your brain. Talk to the camera, but you are on things you are an expert on or things that you love. And that model, and I've done it for a bunch of people. I did it for Ben. I helped actually the Nerdist account get started at one point. That process will eventually get you a hit. You'll hit something, and whatever that hit is, the model should be lean into that hit. Is it Animal Crossing? Is it, you know, what the best type of chairs you should buy for your gaming setup? Is it anime bases, whatever? As soon as it hits, start leaning into that piece of content. And if it's specific, the more specific you are, like if the more you can regenerate the exact video you can, the better. That's the way to like hit success on TikTok in a big way. And it's a try and trusted model. A bunch of people have done it. It's not that it's hard to do in the sense that like that first period where you're making 5 videos a day about whatever you're coming to your head or whatever you can think of, and every one of those videos is getting 10 views a video, is brutal. Yeah. But if you stick to it, you'll eventually start. It's like someone did the math, and it's like every creator, as long as you have good lighting, good sound, like all the basic stuff that you can get with an iPhone, and like right. The reason early on in TikTok, which welcome to ADHD, I'm going to mid-sentence veer. Early on in TikTok, a really successful type of video was people talking to the mirror in bathrooms, and they realized that the reason that those are finding such success beyond just like being like this isn't a studio, so like the realism of it was able to like appeal to audiences, but the big one was just that the lighting in a bathroom is good enough for someone to do
yeah,
makeup or like shave or whatever, and so like you just have good lighting in a bathroom. Mm-hmm. And so those videos were doing really well because early TikTok was like, oh, if a video has good lighting, that's something that we'll push forward. So it was interesting, like early on, seeing like different stuff and different activities and how they trend out. For me, I like use TikTok as just an ADHD platform for whatever I'm thinking. And, you know, it's always something I say, like, I'll do Magic content consistently. And the Magic content I do on TikTok is guaranteed decent activity, right? Like almost every Magic video I put out has between 1,000 and 5,000 views. The majority hit 5,000 to 10,000, and 1 out of every 10 will get to the 100,000 view count area, right? But that's it. That's like the hard cap. And that hard cap has grown. It used to be 50,000 was the hard cap. Recently, with more creators getting on, more Magic players getting on TikTok, it's grown up and gone up in what that top cap is. The other content I make, which is mostly like anime focused or nerd culture focused or just like whatever I'm doing in life focused, that stuff is the stuff that has the potential to do the million view count stuff. Like all my million view videos, or I have a playlist over 90,000, which is like all my videos that have hit over 90,000 views. Most of those aren't Magic related. They're One Piece related, or My Hero Academia, or Animal Crossing, or that gaming. I have that gaming chair video that went viral everywhere. So that like that content, because it just has a wider audience, right? Magic is very niche, but due to 10 years of content creation, I've been able to build somewhat of an audience.
To squeeze it, to squeeze the limits.
I understand.
Like, squeeze it out of that magic rock, whatever that is, right?
I just can talk about Magic for hours. There's a not 15 year. We're at a 10 year. This is the 10. This October will be our 10-year anniversary. 10-year podcasts, 54 episodes a year, hour and 20 minutes an episode. It's a lot.
It is an intense body of work. And I'll definitely get into that, but I want to also ask some questions more about TikTok. So, like,
Should I introduce myself? Will you do that ahead of time? I don't know.
Oh, I'll do that ahead of time. I'll do an intro for you. So don't worry. The world will know who Alex KessWylie Kessler is. Yes.
Hello.
No, I like to just drop right into it. So
cool.
But yeah, my question about my other thing about TikTok is like, I kind of started from like, what the F is this? Old man yelling at clouds towards TikTok. And now I'm just kind of like, if you're in the game to do content, you need to figure out what this is, or you should have done it yesterday, really. But
yeah,
you like, don't hate the game. Like, that's the game. So it's like, I feel like there's a lot of purists who are kind of like, I'm in 2010 and I want to like do slow, long form stuff. And sure, I mean, if that's what floats your boat, buddy, like, go ahead, keep doing that. More power to you. But it's like, the world is going in a certain direction. So it's like, I'm always fascinated by like how people do it, on the new platforms.
That was a hard, I had a lot of friends early on who were like, before I started a toy company, I was like in the video production YouTube space, and I have a lot of friends who are like in that world still, and they tried doing TikTok and couldn't do it because they were putting the effort needed to do TV, video, YouTube content per video. And the bandwidth of effort it takes to do that is so high for the results on limited video release content. And kind of basically the idea is like, TikTok doesn't care that much about how high quality the video is. If a video of high quality has a slightly higher chance to do well, sure. But the percentage of it doing well chances versus loose talking to the camera to your hand or a video out on the street is not very high. The line between those two options. And but what TikTok does want you to do is quantity of content, right? It wants more videos from an account, not necessarily better quality ones. Or like YouTube historically has been the opposite, right? YouTube, it does want quantity of content, but it wants high quality, long form content.
That's changing now too, because YouTube is playing catch up with shorts.
Well, now everyone's trying to be TikTok, so the world has changed. But so they would, if you're like putting your heart and soul into every single video, creating artwork, which is a debatable content that some TikToks aren't artwork, because I actually think a lot of TikTok off the cuff is still art, but and then you're getting 10 videos of you're getting 10 views of video off of all of that effort, and it's taking you a week to put out one piece of video versus the person who's putting 3 videos out a day because they're doing a little bit, whatever's easiest for them. That can be disheartening, right? And a lot of people I know dropped out, to your point. And the other half is, there's just every new social media website is going to have boomerisms applied, which is like, and I've done that to social media apps myself, right? And like, Be Real is something I'm just never going to do.
Where's Be Real now? I heard so much about it a few months ago. Like, is it still
It's still around. I mean, TikTok added the functionality of Be Real to itself. Like, Snapchat is a better example. Like, it hit in that perfect late 20s. I'm on Facebook and Twitter. And Instagram. I don't need another social media app. And like, there's like, I never hit Instagram. Was never a big thing for me. Photos aren't really a thing that I'm like trying to look at very much.
Now it's all videos on there anyway.
And now it's just TikTok reposts, right? And so just whatever video format, easy to watch. Early TikTok also just was like a lot more meme based almost. And so it like one of the other ways to do well on it is like look for the meme and then take your niche, Magic the Gathering, One Piece, and recreate the meme with your niche. And that's also like, something that like just using the app will teach you kind of how to do. But to your point on should people be doing it or what should be doing it or should they have been doing it yesterday? TikTok is the thing that's special about TikTok that no other social media platform has. And one of the reasons I was drawn to it so quickly is discoverability, right? Every other platform other than maybe Twitter which is my second most used social media platform. Every other platform is about sharing your content, right? Twitch, for instance, you will not get viewership on Twitch just because you are playing on Twitch.
Twitch has zero discoverability.
Correct.
It is a flawed platform.
You have to share it to other places and get your audience from other places that get to Twitch. YouTube is not far beyond that. Instagram's not far beyond that. Facebook's not far. All of these are share to people to get follower platforms. Where TikTok, I think if I looked at my algorithm right now, I think 10% of my views come from my follower base, 5% maybe at times if the video is doing well. And that's what's great about it it's 100% discoverability. Now, the reverse side of that is because every video I post doesn't go to 100% of my followers. Follower count matters a little bit less than viewership count and hooking people per video. But, you know, if you are creating art of any variety anywhere and you want to build an audience to it, it's the opposite of Twitch. And for instance, if you're a Twitch streamer, you should be making TikToks tomorrow. You should get every VOD you can get onto TikTok in some way. Your best moments, get any clips that people clip of you.
Just pump it out, man. Just pump it out. Like 5 to 10 a day.
Because TikTok, you can get your audience from TikTok to other platforms. It takes effort but that's the goal of TikTok, right? It is an advertising platform for other.
Is that your goal, or is it to be for TikTok, or is it to just basically have fun? Like do you have concrete goals when it comes to TikTok?
No, it's to have fun.
Okay. Because I've heard monetizing is also notoriously challenging compared to some other.
If your goal is to make a living by being a TikToker, you will not succeed. If your goal is to use TikTok to make a living somewhere else, yeah, full stop. I mean, it's possible. People have done it, but the people that are making a living by being extremely TikTok famous are doing it through brand deals outside of the TikTok fund, right? The money you make on TikTok is nothing. That's one of the largest actual criticisms of TikTok. Everything that's happening in the news now, whatever. The actual criticism of TikTok that any creator should have is a lot of people are making a lot of content for them and they don't pay very well, versus YouTube that pays a lot better. But the reverse of that is they are paying in literal exposure.
Yes.
And there's value to that. Now, there's as much value to put into it. I use TikTok for fun. I make a living making toys and selling to, you know, Walmarts and Targets and Toys R Us or in other countries now, no longer in the US. But and you know, the whole my entire content creation thing is my hobby, right? That's I'm doing this for you know, we monetize in ways, but those monetizations are more to fund the people that are helping me create it, our editors or the, you know, on the podcast or
it's like the Mr. Beast mode. Like the money you make from the content goes back into the content in some way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Or buys magic cards, one or the other.
Or buys magic cards, right. Disposable
funds the
luxury
magic card
hobby items. Yeah. But having said that, like when you go and create a TikTok and like you're trying to make it go viral or have mass appeal, is it just because like you want as many people as possible to see it, or is it like, or is there something intrinsic in your mind like about like taking on a challenge, like can I go viral, can I do this?
So and this is like during the Hive era or whatever, all the different like post Twitter Elon moments. You know, it is hard for me to use a social media platform if there isn't an immediate or a consistent feedback loop. So notifications, people interacting, why am I like posting stuff into a void is not something I want to do. So the bigger the following, the less of a void I'm posting into, I guess, is maybe the goal. I love the fact that I can like post a poll right now on Twitter and I'll get 3,000 people voting in it telling me, are hot dogs or tacos better, or are hot dogs tacos? Are they the same thing? You know, whatever that content, like
crazy
whatever
replies and all that too
comes to the head. So like, am I making content to go viral? It's great when it happens, right? That's like the goal. Like winning is having a video like hit it off and go viral. But the goal is just to talk and build a community and get to say stuff and have people appreciate. Like I live for the fact that like, you know, right now when we're recording this, we're in the midst of the March of the Machine story releases where the previews start next week. And I've been doing recaps of every story and people are extremely appreciative of it. That's what's worth it. Is the comments being like, hey, keep doing this. This is amazing. Thank you so much. The most like the best one probably was the Vraska side story, the invasion of Ravnica that happened. Spoilers for the March of Machine story. I believe this episode is coming out not months from now, but later. So
weeks from now. Not right away. Yeah.
The whole
I
set.
think Mom will be out.
Hello, future. You know what cards are in this set. We don't yet. I can't believe Vraska was really a ghost the whole time.
We should just record a whole bunch of things, like possible outcomes, right? Oh, man, I can't believe they dropped this. I can't believe they dropped that.
Yeah. I can't believe Jace was an elephant the whole time. it's heartbreaking. The Vraska story on Ravnica, like literally I was bawling through the entire story, and I actually just started recording the video right after it, and I kind of cried through the whole video. And people were really appreciative of that. They were like, yes, I'm glad someone else was as heartbroken by this story. It's Alison Luhr, who is was the head writer for for specifically the Ixalan storyline. All of the stories centered around Jace and Vraska's relationship. They are now at Destiny. They're part of the Destiny writing team at Bungie. But they came back, and this was the final story they wrote for Wizards, and it was the kind of the culmination of Vraska and Jace's relationship through that, and it is. I was a train wreck. It broke me. I all day yesterday. I just was in and out of just depression because of how.
Hopefully you're better now.
Yeah, well, thinking about, I'm getting chills just thinking about the story. So, but I did a recap on it, and I posted all those to YouTube if you want to watch them. They're on the MMCast YouTube channel as a playlist that's easy to find. But it's just really fun doing that and have people respond to it positively. It's 100% just the positive feedback loop of I'm creating stuff that people like watching. Going viral is, a sign of that being true, right? Oh, people loved this. This is great. But I'll read every comment. I know creators often just don't read the comments, right? Which is true sometimes. I'll read the podcast reviews on the actual iTunes app or the negative comment somewhere, and I'll tilt for 24 hours being oh no, someone said something mean. But most of the time it's positive and or it's constructive feedback, right? Don't early on I would say right after every sentence in podcasting, or I'd have other verbal tics that the comments are what told me oh, maybe I should work on not doing after every sentence.
You know what I found, Alex? I found that I used to be a lot more caring about those tics. It's almost like the equivalent of I used to care about things being more polished and non-TikTok-y. And now I just feel if we're vibing and we have a conversation and I say a few times because I can get to the point or whatever, and I interrupt you, which I've already done 10 million times today, so I apologize in advance. That's not usually how I am. Because I just felt the tempo of the conversation is going a certain way. Then I'm just going to change it up. I'm talking much faster because you're talking faster compared to the guests I had before. And that's fine. I just feel everything is situational, right? And I don't know. It's just I've really kind of deviated from having these sort of sacred cows of doing content,
Oh, yes. I as the person
that's
famous
as succinct
for
as you're going to get today.
Yeah. as the person famous for every tweet has a typo in it. Being succinct or polished is overrated. I feel like being real and just who you are is going to get you a lot farther, especially on the internet, than anything. But I lost you, or you're frozen.
I'm just frozen for you.
Yeah, you were frozen and I couldn't hear you. You're now moving it and I can hear you, but there.
Okay.
It was when it shut down earlier.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not impacting you too much. It doesn't put you on tilt, hopefully.
Oh no, I'm totally fine.
Okay.
Plus, we live in the world of post-COVID Zoom meetings where I've had my most important work meeting of the entire year, and the connection's bad, and every other sentence is delayed. So if I can emotionally handling that, this is great.
This is honestly why I moved to this, because I was doing Zoom and it was just freezing every 3 seconds, and it's just I can't.
We used Zoom early on for we did a Monday night Commander stream when everyone was doing Commander streams during COVID, just to play some version of Magic, to be honest, and we immediately moved away from Zoom.
There's a testimonial right there.
Yeah, don't use Zoom, everybody. KessWylie message on top.
I gotta ask you though, because if I think of Twitter and TikTok as kind of fast twitch content creation, it's just feeding our impulses, instant gratification, right? Then how do you reconcile that as a creator with the podcasting stuff, which is what we're doing, or what you do with Ben? It's much more slow burn, and it takes time to develop and actually talking and not tweeting. Is there a different part of your brain that does it, or are you just so able to context switch now?
So for the podcast, I would say the podcast or podcasting as a format has the ability to be as freeform as the previous two you mentioned. right? Like, and similar how we were just talking about, right? You were saying, I'm not as polished anymore. We just were vibing together and having a conversation. That's what the podcast is, right? So it's not that different. The big difference is timing, right? Like on Twitter, I have whatever 180. Now I have more characters, but because Elon Musk is wild and
Now you have unlimited power. Yes.
For the record, I was paying for Twitter Blue before Elon Musk existed because it lets you edit your tweets, and then that gets rid of 75% of the typos that I would be having in them. So, and also you get 10-minute video uploads, which is really important for reposting the 10-minute TikToks that I now am making. So, Elon sucks, regardless. But as far as the podcast goes, you know, and TikTok has, you know, had minute long, now it has 3 minutes, now it's 10 minutes. But once you pick when you start a video and making it, what the length is, it's hard to, in the app, keep content you've made while extending the time if you run out of time. So you have to just like decide ahead of time how long this is going to take. But if you do a 3-minute or a 10-minute video in TikTok, different features are no longer available. For instance, on TikTok, if you stitch a video, which is like someone else has a video and you want to, it's basically quote tweeting, you're responding to something someone else said. That's a lot of the like, what did you have for dinner today? And then you stitch and then you say what you wanted, which is like early TikTok content for me, was like cursed magic questions that people could answer in that way. You can't, if it's a 3-minute video, the audio of that first stitch video no longer exists. You have to like, so like there's features that go away the longer. So the TikTok thing is you have to speak in a minute, right? You have to get your whole idea succinctly. And there's a lot of videos of mine that are like going through a rant and then the last 5 seconds are just like trying to get as much as possible. Yeah. Or I'll have like a brick of text of everything I was going to say written out being like in that 5 seconds. Mm-hmm. But for a podcast, which you have unlimited time theoretically outside of, you know, your actual day-to-day schedule. But I've to your question, content that does take thought and forethought. I'm terrible at scripted content. It is one of the first things I did as a content creator was the show Top Decking, and I acted in 3 scenes total for the 2 seasons. And we were trying to get all of the people behind the scenes as cameos as much as possible. And the reason I was only in 2 of those scenes is because I hate reading scripts. I like can't memorize them. I don't get it right every time. There's even one of the recap videos I did. It was the Elsbeth one when, I guess spoilers, but 3 weeks ago, Elsbeth becomes an angel. I wrote this really good tweet months ago about like Elsbeth maybe becoming an angel, and it was like this like 12 Elsbeth twice reborn. You know,
called it. Yeah.
From Nyx, you know, or Nyx escapee. Like it was like a Game of Thrones epitaph of like all of her accomplishments, and then it was like, and is now standing in front of Elishnorn and pissed. And I like was trying to read that as like the intro to this 10-minute recap video I was doing from the story where she comes back, and it is so stalted. It's like badly acted. It's like when I posted it to Twitter, I deleted that part of it because just like I can't. Reading scripts is hard for me. I'm much better. You know, I took 5 years of improv in middle school and high school to not have to read scripts.
Yeah. So does that mean when you and the current process that you and Ben Bateman have, like, is there just a general outline, or do you guys just kind of improv, and how does it work?
So throughout time, it's been different. Right now, it's totally just us talking. There's no we like have a subject, so it'll be. We're reviewing the set, or we're
Lord of the Rings
about,
or something.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings, or we're talking about what is Magic 30, or whatever the drama on Twitter of that week is, or whatever. What's the best deck in Modern? What's the Modern metagame? So we'll have like ideas, and depending on the idea, more research or less research is needed. But almost always we like that's the extent, right? At most, we're like the most work we'll put into an episode really beforehand, as far as like outlining what we're going to talk about, is if we're doing like a top 10 episode, we'll like each come up with our rankings of the top 10 of whatever that subject is, and then we'll battle those top 10s against each other, not knowing what the other person's is, which even then creates a sense of improv and you know, you see the surprise from us on what's going on. Part of it is I found like when we were planning out what we were going to talk about on the podcast, the conversation that we were having while planning was worth recording. where it's like, oh, we just had this really good conversation on why Liliana the Veil is the best planeswalker in Modern. That's not as true anymore, but at the time, to talk about it on the podcast. And then when we tried recreating that conversation with intent, it was 50% worse than just the first conversation we had about it. And I wish we were recording that conversation. So now when we start the podcast, I just hit record. We do a 15-minute, like, exclusive to Patreons where we'll maybe discuss what we're going to, a little bit more planning. And then what we always have a conversation that's not Magic related. But then the podcast just rolls and we just start talking kind of as we're doing now. It's a co-interviewing. Ben's also really good at it too, because he comes from a background of like interviewing celebrities and on red carpets and like naturally being able to like have entertaining conversations on camera. And so it's just worked for 10 years.
Nice. So I listened to the recent episode you guys had, and I guess this is like time machine moment because I guess it won't be the most recent when this comes out. But you guys were discussing the One Ring, right? You guys were discussing that.
The new Lord of the Rings set.
From the Lord of the Rings set, yes. And that specific card, and you guys had a kind of like back and forth, like you thought this is going to be pretty good, and I can't remember if you thought it was going to be it's pretty solid, and he said it was not that great, or vice versa. But it's like, I guess that's not scripted at all, right? That's just like, it just comes up organically. You guys just happen to have a difference of opinion. It wasn't like pre-planned or anything like that.
Correct. And we've learned like sometimes it's good to be contentious, right? Like if we'll walk into a conversation and if one of us is like on pro something, if we're both like, yeah, this is a good card, that's more boring than one of us will just disagree for fun's sake. That comes with like a level of just being annoyingly argumentative with each other in a way that's fun. But I believe I was
better listening. Yeah.
I was pretty pro the Ring because of the play pattern of like the fact that it's legendary. You can sack it if you play a second one, and then you get to keep re-triggering the triggers. And Ben was pretty off of it, partially because it is a 4-mana artifact that draws you one card. So that was a good conference. That's a fun. I mean, we're both really excited for the Lord of the Rings set too, because it's like.
Well, I could tell. He was listening. He's a I guess you guys are both lifetime fans, right? He mentioned listening to the Howard Shore soundtrack of the movie like a gazillion times.
Oh, well, Ben will sit in his apartment, drink a glass of wine while blasting either the Lord of the Rings soundtrack or the Interstellar soundtrack, just like looking off into the distance. And then, and my like, I started with the animated series, right, or the animated Hobbit cartoon. That was my like intro as a child, where I would like scare my sister who was terrified by Gollum when we were like 6 years old. So we're both. I feel like a lot of people are that, right? Like Lord of the Rings has been around before most of us have been alive, and so as long as you had some fantasy exposure as a kid, Lord of the Rings was, especially back in like the 90s when Harry Potter didn't exist and like the renaissance of fantasy, Game of Thrones, whatever, wasn't a thing that existed. That was it. Like it was like Lord of the Rings or like Disney animated movies.
Yeah. Well, there was a point in history where like there actually was not an abundance of choice for literally everything.
Yes.
Like for example, fantasy or I mean, I guess Brandon Sanderson comes to mind because he's been making the rounds with the recent article and all that stuff. But like, there was a point in time where like you didn't have like that much stuff to read all the time, or maybe I shouldn't say that. Like, there's always stuff to read. You can never run out. But it's like it was definitely more monoculture. I mean, it was a different time.
I think you can make the argument, like, not enough to read, but like also accessibility, right? Like without the internet.
True. How do you know about it?
Like the company TiVo existed for like 10 years for a reason, right? I mean, I think they still do exist, but like the idea that you could record TV that was airing and it didn't disappear into a void like a Buddhist sand painting was revolutionary. The golden age of television, which is the serialized content leading a lot more into like the soap opera, continuous story driven format, was created by stuff like TiVo and DVD sales and the idea of just streaming. Because before that, every show had to be made that if you've never seen the show before or you'll never see the show again, you could sit down and watch this episode. So for having a show continue week to week or day to day was rare, because the ability to catch up or rewatch it, or if you miss something, go back to it, didn't exist. That was it.
Yeah.
It was gone forever. Or you had to wait till the VHS came out, and buying, an entire season's worth of VHS. You think a manga collection is going to be a space taker? It's like you get at most 4 episodes per VHS, and if it's a 24-hour episode season, and so I think like the availability of what content was available, and then get into the fact that there used to be 3 television channels, not 100, not 1,000, not 1,000 plus 17 streaming services that have unlimited content plus import content from other countries. There was a point where like the what you had available for entertainment was pretty limited, and not to mention what was popular was limited, right? I think that's one of the reasons geekdom, speaking of the Brandon Sanderson article, geekdom has become so much more massively culturally important, where like before, if you were really into a niche, finding other people that were into that niche was much harder, and therefore to be able to relate to people on a day-to-day basis, you kind of all had to collectively like the same stuff: sports, cars, music, and like popular movies and popular TV. And I think like even the counter, like there's always the joke on like the Star Wars fandom has this like, I'm a nerd, and because I like Star Wars, people, whatever. But on the other hand, like Star Wars is the most successful, most popular franchise of all time, right? Like there was a point where I was like, I was always like kind of surprised when I was like, oh, you like Star Wars? That's weird. Like, no, it's not.
That's like wearing the T-shirt that says, like this was my favorite band. It's like that meme. Like before everybody started listening to it, it was cool, and now it's like it's mainstream. So Star Wars is definitely mainstream.
I have been a proponent. I mean, the reason. So I mean, talking about making magic content and the reasons behind it. The original reason me and Craig Blanchett made Top Decking, and the reason I made magic content to begin with, was to make magic cool. I want every hobby I have to be as popular as possible. I am an evangelist.
You want to express your fandom, basically, right?
There's a good tweet of mine about One Piece. So my most recent obsession over the last 2 years is One Piece, which if you haven't watched it, everyone should watch this show. It's 1,000 episodes.
Is it still on? Like I remember it being like a thing, like in Shonen, in Jump, like manga, like 10, 15 years ago.
It's a 25-year-old show. It is still airing weekly manga and weekly anime episodes every week.
Wow.
Not every.
So it's like magic. It's never gonna expire.
Well, so that's something. And we talk about Star Wars. Something I love is massive, expansive universes. Brandon Sanderson is another one I love, because I love a world you can delve into with amazing world building and amazing characters and intricate details and stuff that by you having paid attention to 10 years ago is paying off. The fact that like Lim Duel is the Raven Man and is coming back in Magic. The fact that characters from One Piece from 600 that we haven't seen for 600 chapters are coming back and being relevant. The fact that in Star Wars we're getting in like the Mandalorian, we're getting like characters from the Clone Wars TV like Obi-Wan Kenobi's love interest from the Clone Wars TV shows. Actress is playing her now as one of the lead characters. Like all of that stuff is my personal obsession. So, and the tweet I posted about One Piece was basically along the lines of, "Hi, I'm now obsessed with the show. I apologize. For now on, this is going to be half of my personality, and you're going to have to deal with it." And I can go on a long rant on why everyone should watch One Piece. But like, there's a really good, and it's a 5-hour long YouTube video that you don't need to watch. But it basically, One Piece is the modern day Odyssey. Was their thesis statement, and they did a very good job at proving that to be true. And kind of the idea is it's not the best piece of literature of our time, right? It's there is maybe a more succinct piece of content, but through the fact that it is as long as it is, it's able to build things, but it also is able to represent the times that we're in a way that is one of the reasons the Odyssey has endured, right? Like the struggles of the people of that era are built into that story. And One Piece is very similar. And even for us now, 25 years later after it started, you see it evolve through the show where like it starts with, more like mid-90s, more police brutality, corruption, and government. That's where kind of it starts. And then it extends into environmentalism, and it extends into, more racial relation based conflicts that then extend into evolving. Something that One Piece does a lot is it evolves on the concept it had before. So like the second big arc of the series is very focused on a government officially approved warlord trying to take over a kingdom, and the Straw Hats having to fight against that. And then up until very recently, the longest arc in the series is a secondary version of that, showing what would happen if that type of character had won. And this was 20 years after the fact, and then dealing with that. And then, so it reiterates on itself in a really good way. We could do an entire second episode about it. You should just have me on again and talk about One Piece.
I feel like you should have a One Piece podcast or something. Like
if I did not have a child and a business and like 6
and already cast and all these things,
I would have at this point. There's at least 3 different things I've wanted to start since basically COVID, and one of them is a One Piece podcast, which I'm not doing because I don't have the time. Even scheduling this, it was hard. I mean, everyone knows we had to find, like, especially because time zones. You're
I'm in China.
In China, I'm in LA. Like one of the challenges of being in LA as a Magic content creator is so many of the things that you kind of used to do, which is like 5 p.m. live streams that you would join, and then 5 p.m. because it's like East Coast, West Coast, the perfect timing. I'm not available until 8 p.m. because I have a son who's 1 year old.
Yes.
By the time this podcast released, we'll be 1 year old.
Congrats!
Thank you. Yeah. His birthday is April 9th.
Early congrats, I should say.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
We're doing a Easter. His birthday is Easter this year. I'm Jewish. But we're doing a dinosaur Easter egg hunt.
Okay.
So we got these little stuffed dinosaur, like they're stuffed animals that like envelop into an egg, and apparently child safe and perfect. And we're gonna hide them all over my parents' house, and it'll be fun. And there'll be like 6 children who don't know what's going on because they're all like 1 year old. And then, but different tangent. But
no. That's fine. I want to ask you about that. Like, don't worry. I have a list of things that I'm gonna like go back to. So don't worry if you're like going on tangents. This is the show of tangents of tangents. This is what Humans of Magic is about. So, what's it been like the last 12 months being a dad? I assume for the first time, right?
Yeah, this is my first child.
Rodeo.
I am the oldest of 6, so there are parts of it that are
identifiable, relatable,
or like familiar, right? Like it is interesting. My wife is the youngest of 2, and like I definitely ahead of time have like I've changed diapers before, right? Like none of the like basic stuff is like new, surprising, whatever. But being solely responsible for a child is a totally different game than being like the older brother to a child. It's awesome. Like it like, and I've learned on this subject matter specifically, I want to be a little bit more careful because as we've talked, my go-to relation to things I love is to evangelize them. I want people to like the things I like. And I am very much enjoying being a dad, which I've then been like, now everyone needs to be a dad. Which is like...
The dad podcast is the other side project, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If we are mutuals on TikTok, you will get Ash and Alex podcasts in the morning where I just record a TikTok, but it's mutuals only. I'm not trying to be a parent that has a famous child. That sounds terrible for your child.
Trying to create the next Macaulay Culkin.
I'm like down. I'm not like on the scale. I have friends who are like, I'm not going to post a picture of them on the internet. I'm not there, but I'm also not of the like, I'm trying to make this kid famous. I want neither of those. I'm just gonna share what's going on in my life like I do everything else. So if you don't want a child, that's great to the world. Everyone makes what's the best choice for them. It is a lot of work. It is exhausting. It's very expensive. But it's really cool. Like just like earlier today, I was talking. It was like, oh, there's just like, I can't explain how sick it is to be excited about the smallest things. Like he waved. That's amazing. The fact that he like made an L sound for the first time. The fact that he climbed onto a couch today. The fact that he's like shaking his head no for the first time. He doesn't know what no means, but he's like doing this. He couldn't do that 2 days ago. That's all. amazing. That's very cool. He like, you know, there was I'm a physical jungle gym to a person now. I spend the first 2 hours of my day just like laying on the floor in the middle of a room because he wants someone to be near him, and he'll just climb over me and slap me in the face once or twice. But it's awesome. Being a dad is cool. I mean, and it's a weird moment in history, right? Because like we're at the tail end of COVID. You can kind of discuss where in that tail end we are. He was born much more into COVID, where like he didn't see other people really for 4 months or like 2 months, just because we were afraid of him getting sick. And you know, after he got past, I think it's 10 weeks, if you get a fever, you no longer get hospitalized. That's like the line. The doctor literally was like, here's the deal. The flu is scarier than COVID is for a baby. For an adult, COVID's way scarier. But for a baby specifically, they actually don't react to it very, very much. And the thing to here's 3 other diseases that you should be way more afraid of, which didn't help me and my wife. And then so we continued hiding it from people. And like every person in the office that we work with, like, you're all getting the flu shot. We will drag you there. Get your RSV, get your strep throat, and what's the tetanus shot, but it's tetanus and there's another whooping cough. Right, it's the same shot, I think. Whatever, there's like 4 diseases that like we made every single person we know get the shots for, and it was funny because we're like, get your COVID shots too, but whatever, get these other ones.
Yeah. Get fortified first with these essentials.
Like not but the and we're just all more aware of that now, right? Like the fact that like. And we're just getting used to bringing him out into the world. There's like skills that I think we don't have as parents that my parents' generation absolutely had, where, you know, just taking the kid everywhere you go, right? Taking him to the office, taking on trips, doing whatever. We like definitely are like transitioning from like only having him at home to maybe taking him on walks to, you know, he ate indoors at a restaurant for the first time today, right? Like that was a brand new experience. And so that's interesting, right? It's like it's a weird moment. And at the same time, I went from COVID. So before COVID, for work, in the year 2020, I flew 250,000 miles between January 1st and March 15th. And then I went from that type of flight schedule to not flying at all for 2 years, or maybe flying once in 2 years for emergencies. And that was great when Ash was just born. To us, like not having to travel for the first 6 months of his life, other than maybe 1 or 2 trips, was great. That I'm no longer, hopefully, because Kess is growing as a team, and it's not all on me anymore, going to ever have to travel to that extent. But I have been back on the road in the last. In February, I was gone 4 out of the 5, or the 3 of the 5 weeks, or 3 of the 4 weeks I was on a trip. January, I went to Germany for 10 days for German Toy Fair, for, you know, so, and that's sad. You like, it's weird going from being around him at all times to, less consistent, you know, like skipping a week. And especially like literally this week, from weekend to weekend, he learned how to shake his head no and how to climb onto the couch. So like there are things that are like,
you just want to be there when those moments happen, right? So.
Well, not even, it's just he evolves so quickly that like you're like, oh, you're like a totally different person within the last 7 days. And missing 7 of those, that's, you know, that's time lost. I think that answered your question.
Yes. I dropped out for a second there, but I think I got it. Yeah, and maybe one day you'll just like come back home, and he'll already learned to play Magic the Gathering or something. Like just they grow up quick, as the cliche goes. Right?
I mean, he's already watching One Piece. He's already watching cartoons. He has like stuffed animals from every property I love. I mean, I named him after Ash Ketchum. Like, right? If we're
That's what I figured.
You know, I like, people are like, are you going to do the Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Charmander, like choose which starter you're going to choose moment? The moment I'm like, he's kind of had those stuffed animals since he was born, so I don't know. there's never going to be a moment where he doesn't know what these three things are to choose what they are. So it's been, he'll be indoctrinated to all these things. I don't have a religion. I have a nerdiness that he will.
A nerdy fandom. That
he's going to disappoint me and be a jock. He's going to play football and basketball, and he's going to be like, Dad,
he's going to disown One Piece one day, and then you're going to have to have a strict talk with him.
You know, when I was a kid, we watched One Piece together, but that's not cool anymore. I only like. But if you want to play fantasy football, that'd be great. I'm like, fine.
Is there a chance that One Piece just continues for another 2 decades, where it just becomes a cross-generational thing?
So
I mean, it kind of already is. But...
definitely already is that. But we are in the last saga now. The last saga was a 6-year.
Oh, so they've already said it's going to be the last.
Yeah. Okay. So we are. I will do this with the minimalist amount of spoilers for One Piece. In the manga, they just finished what ended up being the longest arc in One Piece, and it was the end of a much longer saga in One Piece. And at the end of it, the creator Oda said, "We are now in the last, this is the last part." And since then, in the manga, on a week-to-week basis, every chapter is just like heater after heater. Some of the biggest mysteries the show has had running for 25 years are being revealed, and end game boss level characters are coming into the show that we've known have existed for so long. And we are in the end zone now. Knowing One Piece, that means we have 5 to 10 years left, so who knows? But, we are definitely there.
There's also a chance always with anime or just stories like to have some sort of respawn, right? Because I'm thinking about Dragon Ball and like how the main storyline ended, but there could always be like expanded universe-ish things.
There is zero chance when One Piece ends that Toei, the production company behind the anime, and
will not just try to milk more out of it, right?
There will be a 2-piece, right? Like what 2-piece is, I don't know, because we don't know the ending of One Piece. It could be, and it could be anything, right? Like it could be 2-piece. It could literally be a sequel, because however it ends, when they find the One Piece, what does that mean? What happens to the world at large? We don't know. But it could also be a sequel, a sidequel, right? It could. There are thousands of characters in this show, and many of them could have entire shows and mangas just about them. It could be a prequel. There are enough the world building of the show is I mean, and this isn't my word for it, like One Piece is considered one of the best world building pieces of content ever created. And so will there be content a la Baruto, but hopefully better, about One Piece when it ends? Absolutely. Oda won't write it, probably, though. Being a mangaka is terrible for you, right? Like, there's a reason, like, as an industry, being a writer of a manga is absolutely awful for your health. The creator of Hunter x Hunter and Yu Yu Hakusho, which I have posters behind me for, famously, like, can't continue Hunter x Hunter. It's not done, but he'll go on 5-year hiatuses because his back is so damaged from the art form that he can't sit down for more than 30 minutes at a time. The creator for My Hero Academia has been unable to finish the series. He said it was supposed to end at the end of last year, but they've had to take breaks every month just because his health has deteriorated so much. And to be honest, the series is kind of rushing the ending because he's just trying to get to the end of it because his health can't handle it. So and Oda has made statements being I'd avoid my family 3 weeks out of a month because I need to get my stuff done. The reason I take a week off once a month now is just to see my kids or what. He'll retire. He might not. He could do the classic workaholic. Once my work is done, I don't know what to do with myself, so I end up working again, which happens to everyone. But I would be surprised if he makes more One Piece content versus other people making with his overarching approvals and etc.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, okay, this is going to jump back to something from before. So, well, it is kind of related to this, but if One Piece is the Odyssey, then what is Magic the Gathering?
I mean, I think there's an argument that's the Odyssey of card games, or like of tabletop games, right? Like there's an argument classically that Magic the Gathering is the greatest game of all time, or the greatest board game of all time, or whatever. Like many people have said that statement. There's a reason that like pro Magic players are maybe one of the most valuable game design resources in the game design world. Magic itself is inherently not just one game. It's like 17 games in a trench coat. And it does have features like that, right? Like the sensibility of game design over the last 30 years has changed, and you can see it in Magic. And Magic, like it's a mirror too, right? Like Magic, not only has Magic evolved as game design evolves, it adds double face cards because Yu-Gi-Oh did it. It adds outside the game things because Hearthstone, like it is evolving with the world, but it also affects the world, right? All like trading card games in general existing at all. Arguably, Pokemon's popularity comes a little bit from the basis of Magic. We have met with the licensing team for Pokemon twice before, and one of them they told a really good piece of information where like every piece of Pokemon content is an advertising for the card game. Literally everything they do, video games, TV show, stuffed in, all content. They make money on those things, but it's not comparable to the card game, and it is all an advertisement to sell cards. From their perspective, the licensors of the property who are licensing the anime and the cartoon and the games, those games exist so that they can create expansions for the card game. Right?
And it's the same parallel for Magic, right? Everything is to sell cardboard.
Yeah. I mean, of course, with Magic, but the point is that Magic created Pokemon, right? Like, not only did Magic create the concept of a TCG, which then Pokemon used, but Wizards of the Coast
created that business model. Yeah.
But Wizards of the Coast made Pokemon. Like, Pokemon is a Wizards of the Coast created design that then Pokemon took back from them. Right. Which is why we'll never see a Magic the Gathering or a Pokemon Secret Lair. That is not a good relationship.
Right.
But so I think that argument exists there, right? Like, and like storytelling wise, I can't think of many games that have the breadth of consistency and evolution and in canon storytelling in the games world, right? Like video game wise, maybe, but the titles, like the amount of stories told over Halo, which is that game, the first one came out in 2001. Magic came out 7 years before that, so they're comparably long franchises, which is weird because that makes me feel old. But there's only 6-7 titles plus 4 expansion titles and like some books. The Star Wars is comparable. So I feel like you could make that argument that like, and you can see it within the stories being told, right? The story of the Weatherlight crew versus is a reaction to Mark Rosewater wanting to tell long-form stories at that point. The Gatewatch is a direct response to superhero movies and wanting to make characters and branded characters within the game that they could sell to a movie studio. Literally the story we are seeing now in Magic, the March of the Machine story, the Phyrexia arc, is a response to Endgame and then the Avengers Endgame movie. Literally today or tomorrow, there will be a story released based on what we know from the last story that has the on your left moment from Endgame, where all of the heroes are about to lose, everyone is about to die, but they were able to get like ran into a tree / they were able to get the glove onto the Hulk's hand, and they were able to bring people back to life, and Teferi and an army of people are literally coming through a portal onto the battlefield of Phyrexia, as will, based on the promo art we've gotten. Maybe I might be wrong here. We don't know this yet, but I'm assuming a bunch of legendary creatures and other characters from all of over the multiverse will be coming through portals to fight Phyrexia. Like that's from Endgame. That's the end of Endgame. And not to mention just even the relationship with like the both One Piece and this have this as well, like the LGBTQ community representation in both, where One Piece is actually much farther ahead than Magic is, where Magic had the moment where they were doing it, but then when they wanted to start doing officially released international stories, they pulled back due to the laws of China, the laws of Iran, different countries, Russia, places that they were distributing that's illegal in. Wizards pulled back, which is extraordinarily problematic, and the way they did it was even worse. But then they kind of flipped the coin on that, and they try at least to make it work. So I think like it's different because it is more of a story by committee than One Piece. Like One Piece is the best selling single story by a single author, right? Like it has beaten Harry Potter as the best selling single storyline ever sold. As far as comic goes, I believe only Superman has sold more issues, like as of any type of book, and Superman has been being written by like 1,000 authors,
A gazillion people.
Yeah. Like so, like Magic is closer to a Superman, where the amount of writers and content creators, the people making the story, and the reason stories are happening are a very different reason than that. But that's also an interesting way to look at it, right? Like that, looking at Magic as an art form of storytelling and understanding why those stories are told, which is always important when you're kind of analyzing a story, but then also analyzing the story itself is fascinating, right? There's a lot to learn and there's a lot to be told of the decisions that are being made, or why this character is being killed off, or why is this character being featured in the way that they are. That I love. I mean, I don't know. I think the Magic story is in generally underrated, heavily, and the flavor of it in the world building has been something that is not, it's not given enough counter, partially because it's always rushed, right? Because it's always attached to this product release, and how do you tell a story in cards versus not? And Wizards has not always, or still probably hasn't figured out the best way to do it. But I think that what's there, the people that are doing it care a lot, and there is some amazing stuff in there. And this story especially, right? There's a reason I was bawling for a day, basically, because of how heartfelt a story that they told was. Basically, every story that Magic has come out for with March of the Machines, there's a moment that you're brought to some extreme emotion, be it once you find out it's Sarah talking to Elsbeth, convincing her to become an angel and save everyone in Phyrexia, when you realize that Vadrock, who I have a commander deck built around, is the thing that snaps in and destroys Luca for the final person, for the final time. The moment that, like, you watch the Strixhaven kids. Right now, the video I have that has done the best is just a video showing the story of Quintorius, the elephant character from Strixhaven, who I am assuming his spark has ignited, because that's what everything in the story says. We have not seen the card yet, but I'm assuming there's a card that all of you know and is probably dope. But this little elephant kid who went to a military academy, got kicked out, was expelled, realized that he was a lore-hold archaeologist adventurer, found all of the things he could love in the world in in Strixhaven, found out, temples of his, the Loxodon people of his past and the great cities that they found. He discovers them, all of this stuff. And then up to the point where he and his 4 friends help save his school against the Phyrexians, and him grabbing onto the magic of his contemporary, who was distracted because they were being attacked by Phyrexians, to try and do both the Prismari as well as the lore-hold petals of the founding of the school, ignites his spark, and he teleports to probably another plane. And it's like this amazing PETA artwork. I just walked through it using an audio from a country singer that I'm forgetting that's very famous, but whatever. And it has 100,000 views because people relate to it, because people love this character, because Wizards has done a good job. They miss. They also kind of will go left when they should go right. But they hit sometimes, and you can tell amazing stories through a card game, I think. And for 2 reasons, right? It's been really interesting watching people's relationship with the Magic story through this arc, because there is a heavy death toll, right? 8 of 9 if you count Tybalt. Extraordinarily popular characters. The faces of their game have been completed and theoretically killed. Once again, this could all be undone in 3 weeks. We could be getting a Teferi redo. And, from a storytelling perspective, it's phenomenal. It's extremely heartfelt. It's extremely tragic. It's terrifying. But there's a lot of people being like, I just want more Jace cards to get printed. If Jace dies here, then I'm sad Gideon's dead still, because I can't get more Gideon cards. And in a card game where being able to play with that character in Standard, if that's your preferred format, or Draft, is the main way of interacting with these characters, then the fact that they had an extraordinarily heartfelt, greatly written, amazing death scene, and that by having them die also creates stakes in the story you're taking, and that any story that's able to tell a story that makes you feel emotions is inherently of quality, or of value, at least. is weird. Has a antithetical antithetical, is that a word?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's basically not in the same direction as like maybe the commercial goals, which is to sell more Jaces.
Right, right. And not even necessarily commercial, because commercial, I think there are benefits to having your story matter commercially, right? There's a reason that good stories sell things, right? Like if because on the other hand, if you didn't care about Gideon at all, you also wouldn't want to, you wouldn't sell more Gideons. But as a person playing the game and who adjacently cares for story, now the character I like and relate to doesn't exist anymore, or isn't going to get new cards, while these other characters I maybe care less about do. And that is understandable, right? It's an interesting facet to the storytelling of Magic. Like, if Jace is your favorite character, you're not getting any more Jace cards. If he's dead, I mean, at this point, I'm heavily on the side that Jace is continuing in some way. But if you love Luca, if you're the rare Luca stan there, Luca's gone, and that means you don't get more Lucas anymore. And because Magic is a game that part of your experience of interacting with the characters is embodying them, right? Like, it's different. It's a game. So you are, especially legendary creatures and planeswalkers, you're taking on those roles as you're playing the game in a lot, especially in Commander or Oathbreaker. And there won't be new characters of that character anymore. So it's an interesting dilemma. And I definitely lean on the side that tell the good story, kill your characters. You know, like the fact that I think it is good that Vraska story was so powerful. And I don't think that could be true if characters can't die, or at least I can't think characters are going to die. And to think that characters,
there have to be some stakes, some consequences, as you said. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that.
Yeah.
I don't even know how we got on that tangent anymore, but yeah.
No problem. And this is actually a perfect segue to the next thing, which is, you know, one thing that really impressed me when we met in LA and we actually talked for quite a while about your toy company / empire. You gave me the whole tour, and we had the photo in front of the wall and all that stuff. It was really nice, and we don't have to repeat the story here. You probably did it on the podcast or your podcast already too. But like you gave me a good sense of how like your business understanding of the industry, whether it's toys or collectibles or gaming, actually allows you to analyze. Things. For example, you explained to me, like, you know, why Jumpstart was perfect for Walmart and why the product exists and things like that. And you don't have to repeat that here, right? But I'm just saying that, like,
yeah.
But I'm just saying that, like, I feel like you have some sort of, not that this is a competition, but you have an edge in the sense that you are like an insider in the industry. And so I'm just wondering, like, what are things about, to make this a question, like, what are things about Magic the Gathering, like whether it's like the storytelling or the products or marketing or anything that you feel like you're seeing that maybe other people may not, just as a consumer, they may not see, because they're just literally buying packs, following spoilers, reading stories, and just playing the game. Like, what's the stuff behind the stuff that you're seeing?
Yeah, I think like to kind of quantify, maybe not the right word, what you're asking or saying is I definitely fall under a niche within the Magic community where I have an insight into the manufacturing of toys and distribution of those toys and or products and or games to mass retail in the United States and internationally that most other, if not many, like very few other content creators in the Magic space have. And the ones that do often are directly attached to Wizards in some way that also limits kind of their ability to discuss those
their
things.
Scope or perspective.
Yeah. Like if you're a Wizards employee, you can't talk about your Walmart distribution model. You're not legal. Like, you have NDA signed that doesn't allow you to do that. I can speculate, and I don't know it, right? Like, I know how I've worked at Jack Specific, I've worked at Maui Toys, I work at Kess now. I work with other companies that work with those other companies that are big. I have friends that work at Mattel and Hasbro. Understand, you know, how this process works, right? I understand the manufacturing lead times. I understand that last September through, or really August through December, when product fatigue for Magic was at its highest, that it was caused partially by COVID shipping logistics issues, right? The factory that Wizards worked with over, I think, a 2-year period, they said, to develop the glue that works with the stickers that they had in the unset that came out, that was supposed to come out in March, April of last year, went out of business. Like, the factory doesn't exist anymore, and did it within the period of time that they were starting production on the game and on production on the stickers. So they had to find a new factory. And it's one of the reasons also the stickers don't work very well. And so they had to delay the product for 6 months. The Warhammer product was supposed to come out earlier that year as well, and it was also pushed. Like, the weird gap. People had a lot of product fatigue in the fall when it was like Dominaria United, followed by Warhammer, followed by the Unset, followed by Magic.
That was because
30.
it was catch-up from earlier.
Correct. There was 3 periods in the year that no products came out, that they were supposed to have products come out, including the fact that basically from like Double Masters / the Dungeons and Dragons set release in the beginning of June to September, there was no product releases. There was nothing in August. There was almost, I think Double Masters was the thing that came out in July technically. And that wasn't on purpose. That was just because things got messed up. You know, to your point on Jumpstart, right? Like, people are like, oh, why did these Jumpstart sets suck? And it's like, because they don't exist for you. They are the best learning tool to sell at a Walmart, because a mom can buy 2 Jumpstart packs and her kids can now play Magic. And that is the best entree into Magic that you could have, because you don't need to play. Excuse me, it's not sealed, it's not draft, it's not a constructed deck, but those cards are still valuable, and it still creates that pack opening experience, which is debatably brainwashing. But like, you know, that was kind of, I think, what we talked about, right? Like, oh, people are like, oh, this product sucks. I'm like, it's not. The goal of the Jumpstart product is not to sell it to anyone that plays Magic regularly already. There is a Jumpstart set every year, and I think a lesson Wizards learned this year, that I don't know if they've taken that lesson, but it definitely was one of the problems of product of 2022, was brand names and formats being the same thing can run you into problems, right? So the best example of that is the Commander Legends Baldur's Gate was a Commander Legends set, in the sense that Commander Legends means a Commander Legends draft format. You play 8 players, you are trying to draft a commander, you get X amount of cards in your commander deck, you open X amount of packs, you then go into 2 4 pods that then split off into 2 additional pods after the first 4. You know, like, there is a format that is Commander Legends. But Commander Legends is also the set with a bunch of Commander reprints meant for Commander players that harks back to like the legends of Commander, kind of like a Modern Horizons, or, you know. And so there was a lot of disappointment for Baldur's Gate because there were no reprints in it. There was, you know, it wasn't a set made for, it wasn't a Commander Masters set. It was a Commander Legends format centered around Baldur's Gate, and that created a conflict. Jumpstart has the same problem. There is a Jumpstart set for ingrained, but long-term Magic players, right? That is a bunch of powerful cards, new cards meant for
we can call them entrenched Magic players.
Yeah, entrenched Magic players, expert level Magic experience. But then every set also comes with Jumpstart packs as well. That is the same format. They're both, you buy 2 packs, you shuffle them together, your opponent buys 2 packs, they shuffle them together, and then you battle the deck against each other no matter what you got. But the beginner version of that doesn't have powerful cards in it. I didn't, as a ingrained Magic player, didn't even know this product existed until the second one came out. and I was like, oh, the Jumpstart packs are great, to people on TikTok, and like the comments like, we're not talking about the same product. And that's when I realized, like, oh, this is what replaced theme boosters from the year before. And it's a great idea. Like, it works very well for its purpose, but Wizards has this branding issue. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that moving forward, just because that will, you know, that they, I think, have recognized, like, hey, the namings of things and the way you play things are different things. And maybe we should do a better job at differentiating those.
Yeah, the names do matter, and then the interpretation, especially when it comes to the interpretation and expectations of those names, right? I think that's something actually you called out multiple times in the latest pod. You stressed multiple times that Lord of the Rings is a draft set. Lord of the Rings is is it technically MH3, but it's a draft set, so there's certain expectations. I'm not actually 100% sure. Actually, maybe I'm one of those people who are like just confused too.
Yeah. So it's two things, right? The Lord of the Rings set is going to be a draft set. It's also going to be a series of commander decks, and I believe there's also going to be secret layers. I can't promise on that last one. And that might be in the box topper, because there's box toppers that are like acting like secret layers, doing the Godzilla treatment, where it's like, this is bridge, ensnaring bridge,
Right.
but it's the bridge of Khazad-dûm and all that artwork. But yeah, so I mean, it's an interesting one, right? Because Modern Horizons has baggage behind it. So this is not a Modern Horizon set, right? It is acting like a Modern Horizon set. These cards are legal in Modern, directly into Modern. They're not going to be in Standard in the same way that Modern Horizons were. People are jokingly calling it Modern Horizons 3 because it is acting in that spot. But two things. One, Wizards has stated this is much more meant to be an introductory set to Magic. This is closer to what a core set is from a power level perspective, partially because it is going to be an amazing introductory product. The amount of people
no doubt, right?
Like,
Tolkien fans and whatnot.
I had a ton of like anime TikTok mutuals, people that don't know anything about Magic, reach out to me when I started, started doing.
How do I play this game? Right?
Yeah, like how do I play Magic? Lord of the Rings is coming out. This is sick. I was like, oh, okay, let me explain Magic to you. And the world of Lord of the Rings is massive compared to Magic, and it's going to bring a bunch of people into the fold. So it is meant to be a little bit more introductory. The Wizards, I think, also, this was true of the first in the Forgotten Realms, right? This is true of the first Dungeons and Dragons set. And it's been interesting watching as more of these Universes Beyond sets have come out, because it's ranged. Because the Warhammer Commander sets, for instance, were actually pretty powerful. Technically, you don't need a Ragavan to exist in the Lord of the Rings set to sell packs for the Lord of the Rings set, right? You don't need a slam dunk. We know this card is going to see play in Modern no matter what happens, and it is costed in a way and pushed in a way that we know it's going to be great. And even I think Ragavan specifically was tuned in a way that they also didn't think they'd ever have to ban it. And that's debatable if that ended up being true, but that was their goal, right? It's just like, I want to create a card. Ragavan is an example of Wizards of the Coast making a card that they think is a slam dunk, going to be a staple in Modern, Tarmogoyf level cost and play, with specifically being pushed in a way
without being over the line.
It has weaknesses that players can lean into to make it so it doesn't need to be banned. I think they're a little off, but I think that was their attempt with Ragavan. And
they don't. You're saying they don't have to skirt that line, because the IP itself will just make sure that Frodo for 6 mana sells or whatever it is.
I think it's Modern legal because they want it to see play in tournaments, right? They want these cards to be tournament playable. They didn't want it to be in Standard, and Legacy doesn't exist. Sorry, Legacy fans. So Modern is the place to put it in.
That's okay. No offense taken. As a Legacy
I love Legacy.
I understand. I understand.
Find a game of
Legacy. I totally understand. No, I'm just laughing along because totally. Yeah. I get you. Yeah.
And especially for new
you're
players,
just saying, for new players, right? Yeah.
But you don't need it to be overpowered. There's going to be powerful cards in it. They already showed the White Remand, which Remand is used to be the best counterspell in Modern, is now a niche counterspell in Modern. But in White is a totally different existence that's going to be fascinating to see how it sees play in the format. So there's going to be Modern playable cards in this set. Just how format warping this set is going to be compared to a Modern Horizon set, I think is going to be significantly less. I also think, and talking to, what you're mentioning, my perspective of toy and manufacturing, et cetera, in this, we do a lot of licensed product at Kess. We have a line of anime puzzles. We have a line of video game board games. We launched Mega Man, at the end of last year. You can buy it on Amazon. We have a Contra game coming out later this year. We have a Street Fighter game that we're partnering with another Kickstarter company. Not Kickstarter, sorry. Let's go back. We have a Street Fighter game that we partnered with a specialty kind of large pre-order company that they're doing a launch on it right now. We have a Spy X Family game coming out later this year. And licensing is a big part of the Lord of the Rings set. And like, I think it was, I forget who it was, but someone was like, can anyone explain with any good reasons why this set is being costed at a premium costed set? And I was like, well, one, every license on the planet on average, and Lord of the Rings is on the higher scale of this, is going to add 10 to 20% of cost to anything. Doesn't matter what it is. That's just how licensing works. There's a reason that if you go buy Star Wars paper plates, they're going to be 20% more expensive than the non-Star Wars paper plates of the exact same quality. So like minimum that. Two, the design process takes a lot more effort because it's no longer, hey, design this card, Mark Rosewater, is this good? Yeah.
You need approvals.
It's hey, Mark Rosewater designed this card, is this good? I like it, but now let's submit it into the Lord of the Rings approval portal where they're going to go over the card and they're going to comment that, oh, hey, on this piece of artwork, it actually doesn't work that Frodo is looking at Sam that it like, and
now it's like making a Hollywood movie. You gotta get notes.
Like literally every piece of artwork has to be approved by not only just Wizards team, but the other team. There's a reason that all of the artwork in the Lord of the Rings set is 100% digital. There is no
proofs,
no handmade. Well, yeah, none of the artists are getting proofs. None of the artists are getting have the rights to make prints of the product. That doesn't exist, which does add costs because that costs more for an artist to do that. Artists can charge a premium for like, hey, I don't get any.
Because it's not their property essentially.
Right. There's a buyout here that doesn't exist for regular Magic art, and a big part of artists' income, if you're a Magic artist, is going to conventions and selling playmats and prints and whatever of your artwork. That does not exist here. So there is a larger buyout per piece of artwork. And there's significantly more approvals because not only do you now have to go through the art director team at Wizards for approvals, you have to go through the Lord of the Rings management company,
the estate or whatever,
of Tolkien approvals. That's just artwork. That's not including abilities or costs or graphic design elements or the names of cards, the flavor text on cards, which cards are allowed to be in alternate frames with their cards, like all of that. Every piece of that required multiple teams to deal with it full time for over 2 years. So that's why it costs. I mean, like, there's also a little bit of like, Wizards knows, hey, we can make more money by charging a little bit more for this because it's Lord of the Rings and we'll get people to buy this regardless. Sure. Yeah. The market will bear but the costs that are making that happen are those two things. And I think a lot of people go into it being like, oh, they're just printing the same card, but they print everywhere else. Why does this cost so much? And those are the reasons, right?
By the way, speaking of, in terms of the Lord of the Rings artwork, I'm not sure if you guys talked about it recently or maybe even a year ago when it was first done. Like, do you guys have any, or do you personally have any opinions about the depictions of characters, like having certain skin tones and not?
Oh, I mean, I have opinions. They're like very positive. I have two opinions. My positive opinion is great. Please, Wizards, I know for a fact, because interviews of J.R.R. Tolkien would retroactively change his content to remove offense, right? There are things that he did in the first drafts of his stuff or the original releases of his stuff that finding out later were considered offensive to people that he changed. B, for his own canon, The Hobbit was written before Lord of the Rings. The One Ring was not the One Ring when he wrote The Hobbit and was specifically and multiple times referred to in a way that made it non-canonically make sense for it to be the One Ring. And in releases after The Lord of the Rings came out, he changed it. So the idea that J.R.R. Tolkien even considered his own work holy ground that could not be changed is, can I swear on your podcast?
Yeah, you can.
Total bullshit. Okay. He would be the first person. He would be first in line to say, "Hey, you know what? You're right. Modern day era. I want people to I want people that love my stories to be able to see themselves in my stories. That's the original reason I made these stories. Is because at the time he thought that England didn't have good enough backstories for their own country because they were an amalgamation of 60 different cultures, and so he created something for them because he wanted to see representation for them." And so he would want this. This is a thing he would be in favor of. So beyond just the fact that anyone who's like on a purist level be like, oh, they're changing the original source material, blah, 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 blah. fuck them. Two, the negative side of it is I feel bad for the harassment people are actively receiving, including myself, when talking about this content. I had to block 30 people on TikTok and Twitter the day of these cards coming out because they were being actively racist on my feed and in other people's feeds. And A, I didn't want them to have any type of platform, and B, don't want them around. So good that I found them, right? That's always the the benefit side of all of that type of coin, which is like, oh great, people outed themselves. I don't have to deal with them anymore. And they maybe I was having to deal with them before and not knowing it, or creating a toxic community for people by having these people unknowingly even be a part of it. So great. I'm glad they're gone. But yeah, that's I guess my strong is great. Do it more. I think that, there's also the argument of like, hey, not, changing characters is one thing, but also we should be creating new characters that are as well developed as these characters in the future. And that's obviously very true, but you can't do that for Lord of the Rings, right? And even when they did do that, people were mad, right? The Amazon show had similar levels of vitriol and racism thrown at it due to the fact that they had people of African descent playing dwarves or they added.
Yeah, I remember there was some discourse about that.
Right.
Although I didn't watch the show.
And that's BS, but right, like who cares? And so like it's the goalpost moving, right, in that conversation that always happens, which is like, no, you should create your own characters. Okay, then they do that. No, but not like that. Do it. What you really should do is not do this, and like that's what it really is. And like does to me the value I have, and you can go to my TikTok. It's in my Lord of the Rings Magic the Gathering playlist on TikTok. I stitched a content creator on the app who is bawling because he's so excited and happy to see someone like him in Lord of the Rings, his favorite property of all time. And literally, if that is the only person that's fucking happy about it, then it's worth it.
Well, there's a silent majority, I'm sure. Like,
there are significantly more people than just him that are. But if that are
not on these unreal spaces like TikTok and Twitter, and I'm just
if literally if you get one person to have that positive a reaction to this and you piss off a bunch of racists, great, worth it. The fact that there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that are going to see this and feel like they're welcomed into this community in a way that they've never felt before is phenomenal and like represent.
So I'm totally with you in terms of like the net positive and things like that, and also what you said about like even Tolkien wasn't that he was open to reinterpreting or like reimagining his work about the ring and things like that. I'm just gonna put this out there as a devil's advocate, right? Everything that you said is good. The net effect is good. Don't get me wrong. But is there I've also heard a little bit of criticism, and I don't know to what extent, is that like, this is like, what about the fact that Wizards is doing it? Because the net effect is good, but the intentionality, I feel like that has been criticized too, is like, okay, I'm trying to appease to a certain demographic, and like, is there a way to talk about that in a way that doesn't talk about like people who are racist for like not liking that direction?
There's a real criticism of corporations using diversity to shield themselves from critique, right? That I think that is I think what you're kind of getting more towards is
that's pretty much, you said it better than I could.
Where like Marvel will do this, where it's like, hey, you're not allowed to dislike the Eternals because it's the most diverse movie we've ever made. When like that movie is relatively very.
No, I can dislike it because the story's bad or whatever. Like other reasons.
That's not why I didn't like this movie.
Use that as a shield.
And what is the level that corporations are using that piece to defend against that? And I think it's different with Magic and a card game and re-representing characters from that world into that card game. That is like, the Lord of the Rings set could be the worst drafting experience ever created. I don't think it will. I think they're very good at making Magic, right? But let me rephrase that. You can keep that in there. Like, there's no way this set's going to be so terrible that like it's not like a movie, right? Where like the reviews of it,
It's not going to be unplayable or
correct,
unwatchable. Yeah.
right? Like, Magic is a little failure proof in that way, where
There's like safeguards for that. Yeah.
what like Wizards is very good at making their game. Like the worst draft format of the last 5 years is still better than draft formats in years previous to that, right? But in the same way that like every Marvel movie is good, right? Like if you want to talk about what a bad movie is, no Marvel movie is a bad movie. There are less enjoyable ones. There's mediocre ones, but they're not like a bad movie is there's a significant a lot of tiers you can go below that.
Sure. There's a formula to at least like have a story and have like some stakes or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
They're well crafted. They have characters that are good actors that are doing a decent job, and they're messy and they're not as good as the other ones, and they might be boring, but they're not bad. And Magic will fall under a similar suit, but even less problematic because like there's only one way really to interact with a Marvel movie. You watch it, or a Disney movie in general. In Magic, like every card for a Magic set to fail, every legendary creature in the set has to be like uninteresting in Commander, which the chances of that happening is 0. The like all of the cards have to be so overcosted that they're not playable in any tournament format, which we've already seen is not true. 3, the limited format has to be bad, both in sealed and in draft and in any other wacky limited format you could play. 4, the cards have to be not good in Pauper. And 5, the fact that there has to be no reprints in the set that are worth anything. And for all of those things to be true, which we've already seen in 3 different ways, are the opposite of true here in this set, where there are interesting legendary creatures. There is a modern playable staple already printed in it, if not more than just the one, the White Remand. And there is a they're doing the box topper. There are reprints in the set of cards that are going to have unique, valuable reprint value. So
They've risk mitigated like failure basically.
Yeah, so
like basically the converse of that is like the only way this could objectively quote unquote fail is like if they had 5 Ragavan ban worthy cards. And
yeah,
they're
it could
definitely
be
not going that
so
direction,
powerful that it's problematic. Sure, and that is one other.
That's not happening already. So.
And it could happen, but like debatable on failure there because like how that relates to different format. Like I think
right.
The amount of times Wizards have printed a mechanic or a card series that I would consider a failure of that level is once, and its companion. Like and Delve maybe, or maybe Dredge 3 times, 3 mechanics, and Dredge
maybe Storm. Yeah,
but like Storm is one of the most beloved gameplay experiences in Magic, right? Like it's bad if it's the best deck in the format, and it's bad if it's good in Standard. But if you talk to, there are swaths of Magic players.
It's a mainstay in Cube. It's just
Storm
a
players,
nice,
right? Like I think the gameplay experience like, the fact that you could play Storm in Modern Horizons 1 is one of the reasons it's the best draft format of all time. Dredge also there, right? Companion is maybe the one good example that really, really, really boils down to like, hey, in competitive formats, this is broken so thoroughly that they had to retcon it, and it's the one time they've ever had to do it. It has cards banned in Vintage,
and it's still problematic after retconning.
Since you've retconned it, you've had to ban 2 cards in Modern. But on the coin flip on that, Companion is maybe my favorite mechanic in Commander. Period. Right? I think it's one of the most creative ways to make building decks in Commander interesting again. So like. Mm-hmm. I don't think Wizards is including characters of color in the Lord of the Rings set with the purpose of being able to use it as a defense against criticism. And I honestly don't believe that most people are doing that. When people use that as a complaint, I think even in Disney's case or in other ones, I think that it retroactively can be used that way, right? I think like sometimes people's issues with the movie will be ignored because they get lopped into the actual problematic racists that are also complaining about that movie. But I don't think that the intent of changing a character to a different background or changing the history of a character to a specific background is intended from the forefront of being like, oh, if we make a bad movie, then people can't criticize this. Because I don't think a single person at Disney is trying to make a bad movie. Right? Like no one that made Eternals wanted that movie. Well, everyone in that movie wanted that movie to be great. Honestly, the movie is close to being great. I think my biggest complaint for that movie is it should have been a Disney Plus series, even though the budget for that wouldn't have existed, because it was just too much for a 2-hour experience. And I think that's true. Like I don't like the people that made Morbius didn't want Morbius to be bad. It like happened to be bad. Making a movie that's good is a miracle.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I was kind of upset that they're not picking it up, but to each their own, right?
Hey,
I mean,
and that's the other point. Like,
I also really don't like Marvel movies, so to each their own. Yeah. But I see your point. It's the execution. The intention is there, but the execution may not be there. Like the whole should this movie be a TV show or vice versa? That's definitely valid. Yeah.
And yeah, I think like. Yeah, to answer your devil's advocacy, I don't think anyone's going into any of these properties intending to use this as a way to get around the criticism, because I don't think anyone ever makes. It's not totally true, but I think for the majority of times people are making these properties and spending $250 million making a movie, or the hundreds of $1,000s making a game or whatever. They're generally doing it to make something good, and they believe, and I believe with them, that making things more diverse makes things better inherently. Yeah. I think I answered your question.
It does. Although I would just add another little sub devil's advocate in there too, which is like, yeah, sure, maybe diversity itself is not. Let's put it this way. Like, I know for a fact, and you probably know this too, that Wizards, like, the left hand doesn't talk to the right. So it's very possible that there's someone working on game design, like, okay, we're gonna try not to fuck this up, like make this a bad set or whatever. But there's always going to be another hand or another arm that's like, let's push diversity, let's like do certain things, and they don't necessarily talk to each other or on the same track. So it's not like you could have agents operating independently and still trying to achieve their things, because that's just what happens in a large corporation, not just Hasbro Wizards.
Yeah, I think there are corporations out there that are evil, that are intending to do evil and do evil things. Fair. I think that the majority of evil dealt by corporations are due to them being hydras of content creation or activity, in the sense that like it's 70 different heads all trying to do the best thing for their head. And sometimes that involves biting the neck of another one, or sometimes that involves destroying a village. And
pretty good analogy.
It's evil, yeah. And like what they're doing is bad, but it's bad through incompetence, not bad through. It's bad through incompetence and selfishness and trying to cover your own ass.
Yeah.
Not evil through like, I'm going to blow up this town, haha. Yeah. Right? Like,
I think it's called Hanlon's razor, right? You know how there's Occam's razor, like the most obvious explanation is the right one. I think Hanlon's razor, I believe, is like the idea that like don't attribute to malice what can be better explained through incompetence.
Sure.
The left hand talking to the right.
And so fine. And I think that corporations are, for the right reasons, trying to increase diversity and inclusion and that world, but because they are capitalistic nightmare monsters, they're going to be stumbles. And that sucks, but I'd rather them stumble trying to collectively do the right thing, even if they're doing the right thing only because it makes financial sense, right? The rainbow capitalism, right? Where it's like, this is a company who's selling a bunch of rainbow content during Pride Month because they know it'll make them a ton of money, even though they're like donating money to right-wing politicians that are voting against LGBTQ or trans rights policies, right? Like that is in some ways what kind of you're talking about. I'd rather them still do the good thing and work to solve the bad thing than to not do the good thing at all.
Right.
Because there's also like the statement of like, outcome is all that matters, right? Like it doesn't matter why. Like, it's better for an evil person to do a good thing accidentally than for a good person to not do a good thing or to do a bad thing accidentally. Like, intent doesn't matter, outcome matters. And as long as the outcome is good, I'd rather people have bad intents to create good things than good intents and create bad things, I guess.
Yes, yes. I'm laughing, giggling a little bit, but I actually agree quite a bit with this. And so actually, on that note, I think we're 2 hours into it. I guess if we include the pregame. So Alex, I just want to say like
forever. So.
no. So I want to be respectful of your time. And also the fact that like you've given us so many good tidbits today. So the last thing I'll ask you is, what is the best place for people to find you on social or wherever you would like to be found?
I'm so bad at this question because it's like a lot of places. If you're looking for Magic content, the MMCast YouTube channel, the Masters of Modern YouTube channel, and or on a podcast app is where we're releasing content regularly about Modern. That is our Modern podcast home. If you want more of just me, at KessWylie on probably TikTok and Twitter are the best two locations. Though like basically every social media app that I've ever joined, which is most of them, early adopter here, at KessWylie works on all of those. But TikTok and Twitter are definitely the two places I would say those are the best place to follow me. And then if you want some of the like toy stuff or stuff. So my toy company is called Kess.co is our website. We're the largest manufacturer of like dance hoops, like the hula hoop, which is not us, but a competitor, but hoop products in the world. So if you go to a Walmart or a Target or a Party City or a Joann's Fabrics to a Barnes & Noble and you buy a hoop, it's probably ours. Check those out. We also do puzzles and tabletop games. So if you go to a Five Below right now and you see a Jujutsu Kaisen or Haiku puzzle or Chainsaw Man or Spy X Family starting this fall, 300-piece puzzles, that's us. Or if you go to like a Barnes & Noble and right now at Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and then Amazon, we have a Mega Man game that we launched last year in partnership with another company called Blacklist. But then we have a Spy X Family game coming out this summer. We have a game called Murder we wrote, which is a party game in the facets of Cards Against Humanity, but centered around you are a true crime podcast host interviewing people talking about murders that have happened. So that'll be coming out this fall as well.
Very meta. Yeah.
And then we have a Sonic game coming out hopefully by the end of this year. But all these, if you're at Gen Con, that's where we're gonna have a big launch party and we're gonna have our booth there. So if you're at Indianapolis Gen Con, I'll be there as well. I think those are all the things I'm supposed to shout out.
It's Kess.co, right?
Yeah, KESS.co is our website.
Okay. I feel like for the YouTube version of this, I almost need to put up like a PowerPoint slide or something that lists all the things
just like have me photoshopped with like the wall from Always Sunny with like all the red lines and postcards behind me.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, and of course, for delicious One Piece content from Alex Kessler, you just have to wait sometime into the future for that to happen. Or just listen back to this episode.
TikTok there is a lot of One Piece content on TikTok. So if that's currently my outlet for all of the not podcasts that I haven't started.
Right on. Thank you, Alex, so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.